Hey guys, welcome to the show. We have Maegan Ferguson here. She is with the Floral Pop, a floral design studio here in Nashville. And today we're talking about floral budget breakdown. Why do wedding florals cost so much? So I'll go ahead and read her bio here. Maegan was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee, and she is passionate about flowers, music, travel, and telling your love story through floral design. She believes deeply in the beauty and sanctity of marriage and respects and enjoys the honor of getting to be a part of your big day. Maegan is a romantic old soul by nature and can usually be found watching a Hallmark movie, black and white film, or listening to love songs from another era while she designs. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, traveling, and volunteering with her church. Having a strong community and relationships are so important to Maegan. She enjoys her relationship with the Lord and loves the cadence of hope and grace that relationship brings into her life. So, welcome, Maegan.
Hi, Alyssa. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to chat with you. I think
Me
this is
too.
going to be such a great topic. It's like,
Mhm.
a lot with everything wedding, it's like couples go into it and they don't understand cost or why things cost so much. And there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that like they don't necessarily know about,
Mhm.
which is the reason why they're charged. So, anyways, we're going to get
Definitely.
into all of that. But first, let's talk about like how did you fall in love with floral design and then bring us into like how you started the Floral Pop.
Yeah. So I actually studied interior design in college. I graduated from O'More with my degree in interior design, but after I did my internship, I was completely burnt out from the high intensity of school. And then I ended up extending out my internship as well. So I did a longer internship than I thought I would. So I got home tired and really wanted to do something that would just be a little more freeing for me at that point. So I started nannying for a local family. And while I was doing that, because it wasn't completely full time, I actually also started doing deliveries for a local mom and pop floral shop in Mount Juliet. And I've always loved flowers. I have extended family who owns a flower shop and retail space in Arkansas. And so that place was magic to me growing up.
Oh,
And I
that's
loved
so
being there.
cool.
So I thought, you know what, I'll do this for a little bit. I was primarily running out deliveries, but then would occasionally get to design in the back of the shop whenever they had a little free time to teach me this or that. And I got the bug there, I would say. But then I actually decided later that summer to switch to working in weddings because most of the mom and pop floral shops get a lot of their business from funerals. And I
Oh,
had
yeah.
someone very precious to me pass away that summer. And so I just couldn't handle all the
Sorry to
funeral
hear that.
arrangements and I
Yeah.
had to get out. So I was like, let's move on to happier things. So I switched to weddings and corporate
Nice.
events and all of that instead of birthdays and anniversaries and Mother's Day and Valentine's, which has
Right.
been such a blessing because I love being a part of someone's big day rather than, I don't know, like obviously everyday arrangements are beautiful too, and those are so important as well. And the holidays are great, and all of those things, celebrating anyone at any time is important. But weddings just have this something to them that draws me in every time. I love getting to hear my clients tell me like how they met, how they fell in love,
No.
where did they get engaged? So I ask all those questions to my clients, and I love finding out people's stories and learning more about them and their relationship and their heart behind their marriage. So weddings are
Hmm.
now my thing, and
Yes.
that is my big passion at this point. I ended up starting the Floral Pop. I kind of started planning it out back in 2020. I realized I wanted to go into business for myself. I've always wanted that, but I was trying to figure out like how do I do accounting and paperwork and what paperwork do I
Mm-hmm.
need to have to start a business? So I started planning all that out in 2020 and then officially opened the Floral Pop in May of 2021. So going this year, I'll be going on 4 years. This will be
Nice.
almost 4 years of business for me in May. So
Wow.
I'm really excited to have been
Congrats.
around in Nashville, especially. But I actually do not only Nashville weddings and Middle Tennessee weddings, but I also do destination weddings as well.
Lovely. I love it. Oh my gosh, destination weddings are so fun too. I
Mm-hmm.
love that you said you love that you really deliberately chose to transition over into weddings because you love hearing the couple's story and, just hearing how they met and everything. And I even just see like this thread lining through of like, even in your bio, you said you love watching Hallmark movies.
Mm-hmm.
Are a romantic old soul. And
Yes,
it's like
more
you're a
often than
hopeless
not, you'll find me
romantic.
you'll find me listening to a love song, and it's
Oh,
hilarious because I'm single. I haven't dated in like 5 years. So
gosh.
my one of my friends pokes a little fun at that every now and again, but it's who I am. I love love, and I think it's one of the sweetest gifts that God gave us is to have love and to be loved in
Oh,
return.
yeah, I agree. Said, oh my gosh, I love that too. And like back before I met my husband too, like I feel like I loved weddings as well. Like I would go and like look at wedding magazines and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know if I should be doing like I felt like weird
Like
about it
somehow,
kind
yeah,
of,
it feels
but
a little
I
taboo.
know. I'm like,
I think
but
Pinterest has
yeah,
helped us with that to where we're
right.
able to unlock and let ourselves dream of things even when we don't have that sitting in front of us right then.
Hmm. Right.
But yeah, I
Totally.
totally get that completely.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Yes, I know with Pinterest now, it's a little more easily accessible for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right. So we're talking about floral budget breakdowns today. Let's start off. So, okay, I know a lot of times a couple or bride will come to you and be like, I would love peonies, but my wedding is in December. And, those aren't in season in December here
Mm-hmm.
in Nashville. So,
They are not.
how how does the price differ between in season and out of season wedding florals?
So, for some specific florals, I was actually just telling this to a friend last night who helped me at an event that I had going on because I used a lot of spring specific florals for this event. And she was asking, well, like, can you get these other times of year? Because, one day she's hoping to have a spring wedding because she loved all the things that we had going on. I said, nope, you're locked into the spring. If you want tulips, if you want daffodils, if you want poppies, those kinds of things, technically, yes, you probably could try to get them later in the year at a different time of the year, but it is so much harder and you will be paying a premium for them. So if you have a specific floral that you love, I would say, talk with your florist. Say, when is that flower in season? When is it available? Peonies are actually a wonderful example because they may not be in season here sometimes, but we can get them from Alaska, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, apparently peonies are a really big product in Alaska, and that's
Wow.
because they have that like moderate temperature that you need for peonies to grow. It just gets too hot too fast here.
Mhm.
So things like that, if you can pay attention to like where else you can get them from, then sometimes yes, those things that are seasonally available become more available, but that is completely that's a it's in God's hands kind of thing because it
Right.
just I mean you can't predict seasons, nature, anything like that. And there are
Mhm.
some, yes, that are grown in hot houses in Holland or in Colombia or whatever it may be. But yeah, there's definitely quite a few flowers that I would say are considered very seasonal. And
Mhm.
price difference wise, if you try to get them out of season, one, they're probably going to be more expensive. And two, they probably aren't going to look near as good as the ones that you would get when they're in the season. The quality
Okay.
definitely goes down a little when it's out of season as well.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So really what you're saying is like part of your job is to really guide couples as to be like, okay, this is the time of year, the date
Mm-hmm.
you've already chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's in season
Mm-hmm.
that could be a more affordable option. If you have your heart set on a different floral, it's going to cost X amount to get
Mm-hmm.
that shipped in.
Mm-hmm.
However, here are some alternatives that
Mm-hmm.
may look similar. Like, do
Yeah,
you have a
yeah.
lot of good like alternatives that you can offer couples
Yes,
for
I would
different
say
seasons?
definitely always ask your florist if you have something that you're sold on, but you can't find it for that specific season, because that will happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
One of my best illustrations of that is Icelandic poppies. They're gorgeous, but they only show up for certain months out of the year because they need certain
Yeah.
temperatures to grow in certain environments. And so, or even dahlias as well. I don't get those in the spring. They're not ready. So, for flowers like that, definitely ask your florist what their recommendation would be. I think all of us have our favorites, of course, that we all would love to use for the big day. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're, say, well, you wanted dahlias, but those are more available in the fall and you're getting married in the spring, your florist should have a recommendation of what their like next go-to is, since that's
Mm-hmm.
not available. And honestly, to me, if they don't have a recommendation, then that's where you need to evaluate if they should be your
Right.
florist. Because they
Right.
may
Yeah.
not know enough about the industry yet to tell you, hey, I've got your back. Just trust me with this. It'll still come out beautifully. It may not be exactly what you were looking at in your Pinterest pictures, but it will still be gorgeous.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice too, because yeah, when you're looking at Pinterest pictures, you're not necessarily searching by season. You're just
Mm-hmm.
gravitating towards cool florals
Mm-hmm.
or backdrops or whatever that
Yeah.
you like. And then it's like couples show that to you. And sometimes there is
Mm-hmm.
that big education gap
Yeah.
sometimes where
Yeah. Definitely.
you, as a florist, I'm sure, have to be like, okay, that was a winter wedding and you're going to be in the summer. Like, you
Yeah.
know, so
Yes,
yeah.
it happens so often, especially for like spring and fall, because if a
Mm-hmm.
fall bride chooses like a really bright color palette, it can look like it's a spring wedding. And so, I'll get that crossover between my clients coming to me with their Pinterest pictures, and I'll go, okay, I love this color palette. Are you going for the color palette or the specific flowers? Like, let's clarify that first before
Yeah.
any of these other things, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, that's a really great question for you as a florist to ask. If,
Mm-hmm.
they're going for the actual floral type and look of that, or if
Mm-hmm.
they like the colors. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. And you could probably go either way, but they
Mm-hmm.
all probably have different price points.
Yep. Always.
So, oh yeah. Okay. So you kind of answered this a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess a more in-depth question and version of this question would be, what's kind of like the percentage or ratio between like how often you order florals domestically versus internationally?
Oh, that is a great question. I personally love to order domestically when I can, especially if I can order locally. So I am connected
Mm-hmm.
to a couple really good farms here in Nashville. Most of them are primarily dahlia farmers. And so late summer, early fall, I will be probably doing at least a quarter of a wedding order with them and getting dahlias for a wedding. Now, dahlias are considered a premium flower, so some of my weddings will choose to have dahlias only in the bouquets or such and such, the focal pieces, so that they don't have dahlias everywhere because
Yeah.
they are an expensive flower. But um, yeah, I love connecting with locals as much as just using my wholesaler who does order internationally for sure. And when she orders my flowers in for me internationally, I get them from just about everywhere. It feels like I mentioned the event I had last night. I have roses from Ecuador, Gerber daisies from Canada. I'm sure a couple of my items were from Holland, though Holland doesn't usually label their items from what I've seen. And then yeah, there were probably a couple other countries represented there as well.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of cool to like put this whole melting pot together of
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
florals from all over the world in a way.
Honestly,
And like,
I love it because I'm wondering who else
yeah.
touched this before it got to
Yes.
me. Like, how many other hands have touched this? What countries has this been through? And I'm a traveler, so of course
Yeah.
I would love to follow the path of
Oh my
my
gosh,
flowers
totally.
before they get to me. Like that would be so fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're definitely. I'd say, you know, primarily I get my flowers from international places.
Okay.
But when I can, I will order domestically and locally.
That's cool. I love that. Like, you are big on supporting
Hmm.
local, which is so great. And yeah, your next trip, you'll have to go visit some of these
I
floral
know.
farms and
Yes.
see what they're
Yes.
all about, where you source your flowers. That would
Yeah,
be
I
so
have friends
cool.
who live in Colombia who have invited
No
me to come
way.
down there because that's like the primary rose grower of the world. And so I
Whoa,
was like, okay,
yeah.
fine, I'll have to make a trip
Twist
to
my arm.
Colombia at some point. That'll have to happen. Yep.
Yeah, that is so cool. Oh my gosh. All right. So your brides tell you like what they want for their floral order as far as like bouquets, backdrop,
Hmm.
centerpieces, all the things. So, how do you go about estimating how many flowers you actually need
Hmm.
for a whole wedding?
So before I put it in order, I go ahead and build out my recipes for every single item that is requested for the wedding. So the bridal bouquet, the groom's boutonniere, all of the table arrangements, the cocktails, the ceremony installation piece, all of those things are accounted for. And I literally will go in and put line item by line item what flowers I'm using, how many of each flower I'm using, how much that flower costs per stem. All of that goes into a spreadsheet and it will compute for me how many flowers I need to order at the end, which is
That's a
really
good
helpful that
spreadsheet.
I'm not having to do all that brain work.
That's amazing.
Because let's be real, if I were doing it all the time and didn't have a spreadsheet to back me up, we would probably end up with some messed up orders every now and again.
Oh man, yeah, totally.
So I love this spreadsheet and it calculates all of this for me. And then usually I order right about what it says I need because usually I'm the person that will overbuy per arrangement. Like I will go ahead and in my brain overfill a vase just a little bit.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
because I like to hope for the best and like imagine that I will have a use for all of these flowers in that arrangement, but sometimes I overestimate a little bit on that. And so I'll usually end up with probably I'd say like 5 to 10% more of the flowers than I need, which actually works out beautifully on the day of because that means either I get to use them to fill in spaces that maybe looked a little more sparse, or I will use them as backups in case anything wilts, crashes in the car, breaks in transit, that kind of thing. So it's nice to have that one bucket that's your backup bucket and have that to count on.
Mhm.
But also, that wonderful spreadsheet of mine also makes sure I stay in budget too, which is awesome. I don't think I've had a wedding yet where I've gone over budget on the flowers, which has been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I know. I have so much respect for you and just the floral industry in general because you guys have to work so quickly to
Mm-hmm.
actually put together your arrangements and
Mm-hmm.
bouquets because it's like there is a time crunch. Like
Yes.
once this flower is out of water, there's
Yep.
time that's ticking. And
Yeah.
like especially for bouquet,
Mm-hmm.
so it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
trying to keep that in water and trying, with the heat in Tennessee, especially like if it's
Oh yeah.
outdoor, like having it wilt and like, yeah, for you to like be so prepared and to have that 5 to 10% extra floral just on hand in case, like you said, something crashes or like
Mm-hmm.
you're prepared. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's great. But at the same time, it's such a tricky balance because you're like, I can't overbuy because I have this
Mm-hmm.
budget and this is the
Yeah.
number I told my
Yeah.
client. And I can't go over that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because
You're
you
sitting there
have to
going,
make money in
okay,
the end.
yeah, yeah. And I don't want it to be all about what I make in the end because
Right.
obviously, I love my clients. I want them to have their dream wedding. But at the same time, yes, I'm running a business and I have to make a profit. So I
Hmm.
have to stay within
For
budget.
sure.
And it's this
Hmm.
really hard balance some days to make that work on both ends of the scale.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's chat about the materials that go into creating the floral
Mm-hmm.
arrangements and installations. So, okay, we kind of talked about like the cost of the
Mm-hmm.
actual floral. There are so many other things and costs and
Mm-hmm.
materials. So, let's go into that.
Yeah, I can definitely break that down. I will be doing it in such a way as a sustainable florist. There are folks out there who will use less earth friendly materials. So I specifically have chosen since the start of my business to use products that will break down and will function better within the process of, throwing things out. I do my
I
best
love
to
that.
use as few things that are going to hurt the environment as possible. Florals wise, obviously you have your flowers, but then to make an arrangement, let's say we're making all 20 centerpieces for your 20 tables at your wedding. You will probably have some kind of compote or vessel, vase, something like that that holds your arrangement. And then, so there's the cost of that. Typically, for me, that is priced out as a rental because obviously that's something I can reuse. Anything else that goes inside that vase, whether it is chicken wire to hold your flowers into the vessel, or if it is a sustainable floral foam, both of those options, those are considered hard goods to me. And so those are things that are not necessarily recyclable later. So
Hmm.
those I will charge for as a item that will not be reused later, just like I would for the flowers. So those are charged for differently than a rental item is. But yes, so there's the cost of anything that's really there helping hold your flowers together. There's the cost of tape, flower frogs, all of my tools, any wire that we use to wire stems to help keep them straight. I actually, at this event last night with my friend, she hasn't seen me work before, which was so fun to have her
Oh,
around for
that's
this.
fun.
And so it's so much fun to introduce someone to all these little tricks of the trade. So for ranunculus, they sometimes will get you'll get one with a wonky stem and it'll either be like really curvy or it'll just be like it's flopping over and dangling. And as
Yeah.
long as the stem isn't like split open broken, you can usually rescue it with
Whoa.
a thin gauge wire. And so you just thread the wire down into the flower and push it down into the stem and you straighten out that stem with a
What?
wire.
That's
So
a
that's how
cool
you get
tip. I
those
love
really
that.
cute, bouncy ranunculus and whatever else, like in the bridal bouquets. That's the way that you get those cute flowers that like bounce and shimmer whenever someone
Oh
shakes the
my
bouquet just a little bit.
gosh. I never knew. I
Um,
love this
yeah,
behind the scenes tips.
because
This is cool.
you just did the flowers just by themselves and then shook that bouquet, oh, you'd have little broken necks everywhere probably. So
Yeah,
yeah, we have
okay.
little tricks like that that you never see going on behind the scenes, but there's someone sitting there wiring a flower stem together.
Wow.
So there's those kinds of things and the labor that's put into getting all of that together. There's the labor that's put into cleaning vases to make sure the vase is clean every single time that it goes out. Clean mine as soon as I get home from an event. I have all my stuff from the event last night sitting, waiting for me to clean it up tomorrow, and that way it'll go back into storage clean. So the next time I pull it out, it's ready to go for my next event.
Hmm.
Outside of that, we also have rentals and hard goods such as like candles and cylinder vases, all those kinds of things that my clients love to have also on hand for their weddings and events. And all of that just takes a lot of time and labor to make sure it is in good working order before an event.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much that goes into it. And like you said, a lot of it's stuff you can't even see, like
Mm-hmm.
the floral tape that's actually holding it together, the chicken wire,
Mm-hmm.
like that's invisible to a regular person who's looking at a
Mm-hmm.
floral installation.
Yeah.
Well, most people, like that is your
Yeah.
job too, to make sure everything's covered and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there's just a lot that goes on behind the
Mm-hmm.
scenes that you don't necessarily know about that can really up the price of your
Yeah.
floral budget. So, and then especially if you're doing like a hanging installation or
Mm-hmm.
something, that most times will require a forklift, if
Mm-hmm.
anything, a ladder at least. And
Yes.
so, like, how I mean, those are expensive too to
Mm-hmm.
rent, and you have to
Yeah.
get it approved by the venue. And like, there's so
Mm-hmm.
much that goes into that. Maybe explain a little bit more about that side of things.
Yes. So for any of those more intricate, involved pieces, such as a hanging installation or even just a massive arch, all of those things require some kind of anchor point, and you have to figure out like Usually I'll do a walkthrough with the venue and say, what am I allowed to attach to? What am I not allowed to attach to? What am I allowed to even use for those attachments? And yeah, what you don't see is that when I did a hanging installation for my best friend's wedding, ended up, yeah, that one was on a ladder. I probably could have used a forklift. That would have been great so that I could have 2 people up there working on it at one time. But we didn't have the budget for that. And I wasn't going to try to hike a forklift out to Baxter, Tennessee.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
it all worked out. But yeah, it took a lot of time and effort to get that up there. And a groomsman, thankfully, helping us tie it whenever one of my fishing line strings popped. You would not believe how much fishing line a florist uses.
Wow. Yeah.
And I've even had an arch. I did a full baby's breath arch at the St. L a couple of years ago. And what you don't see behind the scenes of that is we had to weigh down the base of the arch because it started tilting and wobbling with all the front load that is on the face of that arch. It gets so front heavy.
Wow. Yeah.
So we weighed down the feet, but even then the top of the arch was still kind of leaning in towards us. And so I had to get a ladder and get up and anchor it at 2 or 3 different points to the ceiling so that it would be being held up at the top and at the bottom and not tip over on my bride and groom while they're saying their vows.
Right.
So,
yes. I know. That is like your number one fear as a florist, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, this needs
I'm
to
like,
stay in the
please,
air.
nothing die, nothing fall over, nothing crash. Just when I set you down, stay where you are.
Yes.
So, yes, there's all sorts of different things that are the background stuff that usually my couples will absolutely never see because it's their big day and they're out enjoying it with friends. They are in their room getting ready. They're having brunch. They're having a great time. And I'm so glad. Like, they don't need to know all the background stuff necessarily or see all of it anyway. Right. But yeah, knowing that it's there and it's happening and that they can have full faith, knowing that it's going to happen the right way and that it's going to be taken care of and they're not going to have to worry about that arch and the integrity of it, or that the ceiling installation is put together so well that nothing is going to move in it whenever they're bumping with the DJ that night, you know?
Yeah,
that's the stuff you have to have prepared.
And
sometimes it requires a ladder, sometimes it requires scaffolding, sometimes it is a forklift or not. Yeah, forklift. Yeah, I was like scissor lift. That's the word I'm looking for.
Oh, that's
scissor
it.
Lift.
Yes,
that's the word we needed.
It is.
I was like, forklift doesn't sound right, and I don't know why I keep saying it.
I know.
There we go.
Yeah.
Scissor lift.
Yes, scissor lift is what that is. A forklift's more like in a warehouse, right?
Yes. There we go.
Yep. I'm not. Yeah, you're
Clearly,
the professional here.
We do not run heavy machinery most of the time.
Right, I know.
We can tell.
We hire it out. You hire it out. You
that's what the boys are for, right?
I know. Yeah, totally.
The boys are there to carry things and manage all of the machinery.
Yeah, definitely. I know another cost too that we didn't even bring up is like labor. I'm sure for a lot of these more intense, installations and things, you need to have a team there to help you out, right?
Definitely. So a lot of installation pieces are built on the day of.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, like, I haven't had a wedding in a little bit that I've needed a massive team for. I think the biggest day I had was probably in 2023, but it was also because I had 3 weddings on that day. So I had 3 different crews running.
Wow.
And so it was like 3 different crews of 2 or 3 each at different weddings. So that's probably the biggest crew I've ever run, but it was because it was multiple weddings. I personally haven't had anything much larger than a 3 or 4 man crew. Now I will say my crews are fantastic. So I haven't had to like really need more than I already get because my crews do not stand around. They don't joke or mess around at all. Like they are serious about getting it done and getting it done right the first time. So that is a blessing for me. Oh. But yeah, the labor behind all of it, typically I'm putting in like 10 to 15 hours of work on the wedding day itself, plus the 3 or 4 days leading up to that, I'm putting in 8 to 12 each day designing. So
wow. Wow.
It depends on the scope of a wedding, but usually um, it'll be me designing and maybe 2 to 3 other designers. And yeah, we'll do 8 to 10 hour days during design days. And then for the wedding day itself, it is completely dependent on the schedule of the venue and the wedding day. But with setup, potentially a flip, a tear down, it ends up being somewhere around 12 to 15 hours probably for that day.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. And that's something else too. I mean, that's so many hours you're putting
Mm-hmm.
in that
Yeah, yeah.
couples aren't even seeing,
No,
even if
and
it's just for
they're not.
you, plus
Yeah,
two, like four other people possibly.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Depending on the scope, like I just can't. I can't set out 20 table arrangements, but also get the ceremony set up. I have,
Mm-hmm.
before this, I worked as a wedding coordinator with a local coordination company here in town, and I loved it. But there were multiple times where I ran into the issue of I absolutely just can't be in two places at one time. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know where I need to be right now. So
Yeah.
you learn to prioritize a lot in the wedding industry. That is the
Yes.
main thing you learn in this. And then from there, you go and do everything that you can for that first priority, and then you move to second priority. And I will say I've worked with some wonderful other florists who have taught me a lot about both of those things and have taught me a lot about how to be conscientious of the schedule, especially on the day of the wedding.
Wow. Yeah. That's great that you've been able to kind of work under other people before starting your own business
Mm-hmm.
too, which is really cool. Yeah. And a few other things that I thought of too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you've probably got to be on site too if the couple requests, moving florals from the ceremony
Mm-hmm.
to the reception area,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm sure some people do some like money saving tips of like,
Mm-hmm.
use the bridesmaids bouquets as
Mm-hmm.
centerpieces, or,
Yes.
reuse your backdrop from your ceremony to like your sweetheart table or whatever it might be. And so I'm sure you and your crew have to like
Yeah.
carefully like move those
Mm-hmm.
things to a different location during the
Yes.
wedding day too.
Yes. We have had that happen a couple times. I love doing flips. I love my clients being able to take something and see it in a new space because, yes, there are definitely some money saving benefits to that. I do have personal limits on what I recommend and what I will allow, even with my couples. And I hate that word allow. It doesn't sound right, but I don't know what else to use there.
Yeah. No, I get
Because I
that.
will just say specifically here in Middle Tennessee, if you and your bridesmaids want to reuse your bouquets after an August wedding,
Whew.
they're gonna look awful.
Oh yeah.
Like that's
Yep.
just the reality of it. They're
Mm-hmm.
gonna already have been out of water for 3 to 4 hours, probably depending on when y'all did photos.
Right.
And it's not gonna work. They're wilted, they're starting to turn brown, especially if you go with that all white color palette. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's not a good look. So I don't recommend that. Whenever brides come and ask me about that, I'll say, look, if you want to, okay, but like please do it on a cake table or the welcome table or something. Don't
Yeah.
make it someone's centerpiece that they're staring at for the rest of the night. I don't love having
Right.
my name on that at that point.
Right.
Because this
Yeah.
is my reputation as well. Like
Exactly.
someone else is going to see my work at this wedding and go,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want her for my florist if she lets the flowers come in here looking
Yes.
like that. And they don't think about the fact that it came from the bridesmaid and sat on this
Right.
table. It never crosses a
Mm-hmm.
guest's mind. So
Yeah.
I don't love that one. But as far as like aisle decor, there's stuff within that we could probably transition into the reception space. And when I do that, I recommend to my clients, just don't have it at eye level. If it's that piece of aisle decor that sits by a chair and it's one of those big meadow pieces, okay, great. Put it down in front of your stage front for your band, or put it in front of your sweetheart table or by the bar or something like that, where it still is a focal point, but it's not sitting right at eye level on someone's dinner table.
Yeah. That's
So
great
I
advice.
love reusing things. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love
Yeah.
it, but there
There's
are limits.
limitations. Yeah. And that's understandable. And again, that is like the education piece to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like couples are probably like, once you say that, like, oh yeah, I never thought about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yep.
So
Usually,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. So it's also just a complete game of like, well, what's the weather going to be like on your wedding day? It might be doable
Totally.
sometimes, and then other times it will not. Absolutely
Right.
not. So
Totally.
I never want people to count on being able to reuse an element of their wedding. Because, yeah, you never know. What if we have a ridiculous rainstorm? Actually,
Right.
hold up. I have two stories for you. I'll make
Yes,
them
tell
short and
all the
sweet
stories.
from
Yes.
previous weddings. So, one of them I did at Diamond Creek Farms for one of my brides.
Love that
And
venue.
nothing like crazy happened per se, but she wanted to flip a lot of the aisle designs and use them again on tables. Hers were primarily dried products, so it was totally fine to reuse those. There wasn't like wilting or anything like that going on. So we reused this, but what you don't recognize whenever I'm having to price out labor and time for doing a flip is I'm having to weave through all of your family and friends
Yeah.
as I go back and forth between the ceremony site and the reception site. So
Yes, like
that,
cocktail hour, like, excuse
yeah,
me, like,
yes,
yeah, I
whole
know.
time. Excuse me, sorry, right behind you. Excuse me, the whole
Yeah.
time. And that's me and my team doing that this whole
Right.
time. And so,
Yeah.
there's just not normally some way of getting around on the back hallway or whatever where we
Mhm.
can get through without having to deal with everyone that's attending this wedding.
Yeah.
So that's just a point of caution where, like, if I say it's going to take me an hour, you need to know that it might actually take me that full hour, especially if you're having me move something massive. Because I feel like the bigger the item you're moving, somehow the more people get in your way. It
Of
always works
course.
out that way.
You're
I
like,
don't know why. But like,
hello, I'm
yeah, last
here.
night I was moving something at this event and I'm like carrying this massive stage arrangement up on my shoulder. And I was like,
Oh.
"Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me." And all these people are like, "Huh?" And they're just standing.
Oh
I'm like, "No, I
man.
actually need you to move,
Yeah,
preferably would be great."
man.
So yeah, there's just things like that that we run into. So when I say, hey, we need an hour, hey, we need an hour and a half, like there's a reason for it. I'm not just saying that
Yeah.
so that we make a full hour's worth of pay.
No,
The other
totally.
the other story of
Yeah.
not even reusing, but I had a wedding in August of 2023 and freak of nature things happened that day. That's the day that I
Man.
had 3 weddings going on. And
Gosh.
so I was like, okay, here we go. We got
Yeah.
everything out. Everything was set up, ready to go. All 3 weddings looked great. And then I get a text from Presley from EBJ Company.
Yeah, EVJ,
Yes.
yeah.
So she texts me and she goes, we just had a massive thunderstorm out here that blew up like out of nowhere. And it's pouring rain and I can't even get from it was at Ravenswood Mansion. I can't even get from the mansion to the tent to see what things look like, but from what I can see from here, your bud vases have blown off the tables and
No.
all of the linens are
No.
sopping wet from the rain. It was
No.
a nightmare. So I said, "All right, okay, I'll be there in just a minute." And so I left my
Yeah.
house, booked it from Mount Juliet down to Brentwood,
Go girl.
got there got there. They were having like cocktail hour and dinner inside the mansion waiting for the rain to stop. As I pulled in, like the rain was kind of, you know petering out, and so I was like, all right, let's do this. So I walked up to Preston. I was like, all right, how bad is it? And she was like, all of the linens are soaked.
Oh, it's
We
so
looked around.
sad.
We think we only found one of your vases that was broken, and I had like come armed with a bucket of extra flowers that I had from that day.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, sounds good. So like I filled up another bucket with water and started just dunking bud vases and filling them up with water if it had all spilled out,
Wow.
putting fresh flowers in them and redoing all of the tables by myself because I'd already sent my crews that helped me set up home that day. So
You
I
saved the day. You were a
I was
superwoman.
out there for like maybe an hour doing
Ah.
this. But like that is part of the reason why I don't want to reuse things. Cause just imagine if I had
Right.
said, yes, you can reuse bouquets or aisle arrangements or your ceremony piece or whatever it may be. And this storm had happened and they had already been looking a little rough before. Like, it would have been
Yeah.
so much worse. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's just there's a fine line of being careful with what you reuse for sure. And then also just being aware of like knowing when you're getting married, knowing what the regular weather patterns and that sort of thing are, which I realize Tennessee regular weather
You never
patterns are a
know.
little bit of a joke, but yeah, trying to be aware of that kind of stuff because you may have things like this that come up.
Mm-hmm.
Rain plans, very important.
Yes, 100%. Always have a rain plan. So
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I will say
Yeah.
the sun came back out that evening.
Oh,
There was a beautiful
good.
sunset. I actually went and grabbed a pizza, grabbed a book from Barnes and Noble, and
Love.
sat in the parking lot and ate my dinner and read a book until the wedding was over so that I didn't have to commute back and forth to Mount Juliet again that night
Yes,
without
that
all of
sounds
my gear.
glorious. That
So it
sounds
actually turned
glorious.
out to be a great night for me and a great night for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. You kind of have to be on call in those situations when you never know
Mm-hmm.
what is going to happen. I mean, so much respect for you guys as wedding pros, just doing this and, getting there last minute, doing the setup, doing the teardown, doing the flips. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, yeah, you gave so much great advice here. And I learned a lot too. And I've been in the wedding industry for what, like 12 years? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think this was super educational and really great for couples to just listen to and to truly understand what
Mm-hmm.
all goes into it. And they just sometimes see a number and they may see
Mm-hmm.
some itemized things, but they don't know all of, like, if you
Yeah.
literally wrote out what happens under all of the itemized things, like you would
Mm-hmm.
have a book, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, a
Like,
full-on pamphlet
yeah,
going on.
yes, for
Definitely.
sure. But nobody wants to leaf through that when they're signing their
Yeah.
contract with you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but this was a good opportunity to just share all of those ins and
Mm-hmm.
outs and why, when couples do see that price,
Mm-hmm.
what really has gone on behind the
Yes.
scenes to really justify that price. And it's not wedding vendors trying to just make money off
Mm-hmm.
of you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there is that stigma out there. And yes, maybe there are some who
There are
like
some
have
probably.
crazy up charges, but like for
Yes.
most people, it's like a lot of times this is their weekend job. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's more of like a passion from what I
Yeah.
found for wedding pros because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that they truly love to do
Mm-hmm.
and they're not trying to just, make money off of you. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
this was a really great, really, really great. Tell us where people can find you online and on Instagram and everything so we can see your beautiful designs.
Yeah. So my website is thefloralpop.com, and then on Instagram I am at thefloralpop.20, and then I believe it is the Floral Pop on Facebook as well, but I rarely get on there.
Awesome.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Go check out our website and Instagram for sure.
yes,
Oh
definitely.
my
I will say I've
gosh.
also been a little quiet on Instagram lately. I
Yeah.
gotta say, Instagram gets to the point where it overwhelms me every now and then,
It
and I just have
does
to
get
take a break.
overwhelming.
So, usually somewhere around the beginning of the year, I'll take a little bit of quiet time and then jump back in later. So, if you
Yeah.
don't hear anything from me,
Mm-hmm.
just know that I'm trying to catch my breath.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, just if you're inquiring, probably do
Mm-hmm.
that through her website or email.
Yes. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
not recommend doing that through Instagram for sure for
Yeah.
any vendor. I don't think any of
Exactly.
us will accept DM
Another
inquiries
tip.
anymore.
Yes,
Yeah,
good
I
advice.
definitely. There is an inquiry form on my website, both for local Middle Tennessee brides and then another one that is separate for destination brides. So that's
That's
something that I
awesome.
hope to expand even more in the next few years.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you're not in Tennessee, Megan can still help you with your wedding florals. So
Definitely. I will
yeah,
come
let's get you
anywhere.
traveling. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. This was so great.
of course.
We'll link everything on Nashville Bride Guide and go check out the Floral Pop. All right.
Great.
Talk to you later, Megan.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
There you have it, another episode of the Wedding Reporter podcast. To see those gorgeous wedding and engagement photos, head over to NashvilleBrideGuide.com for more behind the scenes content. And if you like this episode, I would so appreciate it if you would rate and subscribe the show. See you next time for another great episode.